you're just like, I want this to work. I want this to go. I want this to build. I want this to whatever. Whereas right now, I really feel like my role is to disrupt the coaching industry in the sense of like, women do not need to build a business this way. Like, we do not
Yes.
need to do it in the way we've kind of been taught. Brianna, thank you so much for coming on the show. I am so excited to have you here. It's been a pleasure to get to know you online and then in person when you came down to my book launch, and then just to be able to follow the journey of you and like the evolution of you, and like to kind of see us side by side, sharing a lot of very similar principles with a little bit of a different spin on it. And even just as we were chatting here before, we're like, we are on the same page with so many things, but I know we also come with different lenses and different backgrounds and different perspectives on it. So I am so excited to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and see where the conversation takes us.
I know. I'm like, this is one where we like literally could be just sitting on the back porch, and we probably should one of these days and just like
Yes.
sit on the back porch and just vibe out. I have a credit for one of my retreats. I have a credit for a chef in Sedona. And I was like, maybe I need to put together just like, not an actual retreat, but just like a mastermind of a couple of
Yes.
women. I just threw it out there with a couple of women yesterday, but maybe I can talk with you about it. That would be
So
awesome.
fun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I know not everybody knows you, and I don't know that I even know your whole journey and history and story. So tell me a little bit how your business has evolved to where it is today.
Yeah, great question. So I have been an entrepreneur for over a decade now, and the version of me when I first got started is very different than who I am today.
Mm.
There's definitely like the roots are similar, but I've grown and evolved and shifted. And so right now, my main focus in my business is on somatic business coaching and somatic facilitation certification. The body has always been a big part of my business. But when I first got started, I was actually doing mediumship readings and angel card readings. I was
Mm.
like obsessed with spirituality and energy. And I was just trying to like find my way. And then in 2017, I really landed on the connection between energy, the body, and the business. And so in
Mhm.
2017, I launched Kundalini Business Coaching. And that was something that I had seen change my life. And then I started to share it with my clients' lives, and they were seeing results fast. And it was one of those things where from the outside looking in, it probably looked like an overnight success, but in reality, it was like 4 years of failing for that overnight
Yeah.
success,
Yeah.
But it landed. My business grew exponentially from there. I was able to make a whole lot of impact in the world. I had wait lists for my programs and offers, and really stepped into scalability. And then recently, in the last couple of years, my clients were like, Brianna, your tools work. I'm seeing such shifts. Can you please create a certification program? So then I created a certification program in 2020. And then in the last year or so, we've really stepped into the realm of somatic. So like the body's always been there, but I've
Yeah.
grown and strengthened my education and teachings and tools, and built my nervous system to be able to really step in and hold somatic leadership, and being able to teach other leaders in the industry and help them to facilitate even deeper as well.
Yeah. I just wanted to highlight like I remember I had a coach one time that really touted this like 0 to 100K, that
Mm,
she went from 0 to 100K in, less than a year. And she really like marketed herself as this, like, I have had these massive successes. Like, I know how to help get you there. I know how to help get you to that 100. And I mean, I was in early as an entrepreneur. And so I jumped in, and then later learned that her 0 to 100K was only with the one little niche offer that she had done, that she had
mm,
had years of testing and trying other offers and business niches and things like that
yes.
beforehand. And that's one thing I know. I mean, in your emails and your messaging and stuff like that, you are very open about that fact that you tried for a long time and you worked
Yeah.
on it for a long time. And yes, you've had massive success, but it didn't come from, like you said, this overnight success. And I think just highlighting that, I think that there's a lot of messaging in the business space of like,
Sure.
can we amplify and make the messages like sexier?
Mm,
And sometimes that sexification of, like, I don't know if
yes.
that's a word, but the
It is now.
sexification of our successes, and like, how do we make it really sexy so that people really want in? And yet where I've grown in the business space is like feeling like that's so out of integrity and inauthentic for me. And now it's such a turnoff that sometimes I think it does the opposite effect for me. I'm like, I'm super cautious about what I claim and what I don't because
Sure.
I want to be fully honest. So I just wanted to highlight that like I see that in what you do and I'm appreciative of that. And yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on like where you've seen that in the space and like that trend of taking like, hey, I had this success
Mm.
and now I'm going to make it like look like an overnight success and use that as a message and marketing tool. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Totally. I'm happy we're having this conversation because it's something that I think is an important conversation to have. I think it's important to have transparency and for us
Mm-hmm.
to share like what we've seen and what we've gone through. And for sure, I think that there was this like burst in the coaching industry. I feel like what I saw some like 2017 to 2020 where everyone was like 0 to 6 figures, 0 to 6 figures. Like that was like the hot message. And now
Yeah.
it's like 0 to 7 figures. I'm like, is it going to be 0 to 8 figures next year? Right? It's like there's this, it keeps growing. But I think that there's a couple of things happening. One, our industry is amazing and full of people that are doing the work and healing. And also there's always going to be a shadow component, right? There's light and
Mm,
there's shadow. And I feel like when we look at other industries, I mean, even just being a child in the 90s, there was like those infomercials that are like, take this pill and drop, 100 pounds overnight. Like we saw
yeah.
that. And it's like, I think we're just seeing that like shadowy piece in our industry. I think that that's just like a part of it. And two, I think that there's, you and I speak about the body and like being a woman and femininity. There's also a wounded aspect of femininity where there's this over magnetism and making it sound like you said like so sexy, but is there truth to it? And I think that
Yeah.
there's a balance to that where it's like, yes, be in your feminine power, be sexy, be magnetized, like yes, that is us as women. And also make sure you can stand in it, make sure it has
Yeah.
legs, make sure it's rooted in truth, not just
Mm-hmm.
it's sexy, this sounds good, and I actually can't back it up. And I think that that's really important
Mm-hmm.
because I know for me, I'm someone, and I feel like so are you, Renee, where it's like we believe in like truth and we're
Mm-hmm.
very real. And I just assumed in like the beginning stages of my entrepreneurial journey that like everyone else was like that, and I didn't
Yes.
know that people were like, I wouldn't say lying, but like their numbers were inflated or they were
Yeah.
talking about numbers over the course of like years versus in a year, or they were talking about sales versus cash in. Like I didn't know. I was a little bit, I guess, maybe naive in that sense in the beginning. Like I just didn't, I was being real. I just assumed everyone else was. Like I actually had a mentor that was like, 7 figure mentor, 7 figure mentor. I hired her because I was about to hit 7 figures. I was like, yeah, let's go. And then I found out that I was actually making more money than her. And she had made 7 figures over the course of like 24 months, let's say, or like 36 months. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, like, I just like, I didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was this like facade. And
Yeah.
now I know. And it just like you're sharing, I weave it into my stories now. And I do my best to be as authentic and transparent as possible because I think it's important for other people to know that and see the real story because
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people and you've probably seen people where they come in and they're so frustrated that they haven't seen the 6 figures in like 4 months. Like I hope that would be amazing if that would happen. And I'm open to anything as possible, right? It's like I
Yeah.
believe in
Yes.
manifestation, I believe in miracles. And also like let's be real and let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about, there's certain things that need to happen in order to hit those 6 figures. And I just had
Mm-hmm.
a huge launch for my last program. And it's like the launch that I've been manifesting. And also when it happened and as I was reflecting on it, I was like, wow, I've wanted this for so long. And also I was not prepared for it any sooner than it happened, right? It's like I might have
Yeah.
wanted this a year ago, 2 years ago, might have to
Yes.
manifest it, but like I wasn't ready. My EQ wasn't there. My leadership wasn't there. My team wasn't there. My imposter syndrome needed to heal, right? Like there's so many pieces. And so if you're just starting, like there's also a reason I fully believe the universe will only allow it to happen for you when you're ready. And sometimes that
Mm-hmm.
readiness is your message, it is your offer, but sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
those internal pieces. A lot of times
Totally.
it's those internal pieces that need to come on board too.
Totally. And it's funny, I had this conversation with my husband recently because I was talking about like my journey and my progression. There's been so many failures and there's so many
Sure.
things. And what I've learned too, like it's really made me feel good by human design. One of my numbers, the 3 or whatever, is this experimenter. And like that
Mm,
is a part of my design, is
yes,
to test and try and fail really fast. Like that's a part of who I am. So it's
for
helped me
sure.
like normalize that's okay. Like I'm going to be
Yes.
that person no matter what it looks like, no matter where I go.
Mm,
I'm going to be the tester, the trier, the
yeah.
person who, the other part of me is the 5. So it's like this big vision, big lead, and let's test and try and fail to
Makes
get there,
sense. Yes.
essentially. But
Yes.
for so long, I internalized that of like, what's wrong with me? Like, why isn't this working? Why haven't
Mm,
I put it together? But just as you said, I look back at where I started, and where I started was in the health and fitness space. And
mm,
then morphed into helping women like simplify, feel more at ease in their homes, feel better, feel good, and creating these rhythms. And then that's what morphed me into the cycle, and then cycle living, and went from really just
mm,
helping moms to like, how do we really do this in business so that it can scale? Like I really see women in business as being the ability to make the change and the ripple that I really want to see. And so like for me, that's like the biggest impact space that I can make.
for sure.
But when I look back, and I like told my husband, I was like, if any one of these things had succeeded, if I had had that massive success, or if I had
Yes.
had whatever, I never would have been to this place that I am right now. And where
Yes.
I am right
Mm,
now is where I know I feel like I'm meant to serve. And maybe it will continue to evolve still. But like, I feel, I think back, if my health and fitness journey had, or like business had taken off, and I was still today just working in health and fitness, I don't know that I would have really been fulfilling my like soul's purpose.
for sure.
And so I look at that now, like kind of same as you, as like that journey that we're on is preparing us and steering us for where we're really meant to be. And I think
Yes.
it's hard sometimes in that, when we're in that space of like, why isn't this working? Or why isn't it going the way I want? Or why isn't it manifesting fast enough? Or like, I wish I had had this a year ago, or like,
For sure.
a year ago, you wish it would be now. But we don't, I think, always understand the journey that we're on and where
Yes.
it's actually taking us.
Mm,
And then it's like that release of, that's like, I don't, it wasn't this year, it was like last year. It was like surrender was kind of my word of the year,
yes.
of like surrender. It's like when we really do embody that sense of surrendering, things do shift and change. And I don't know. It's just, I think you don't know it in the moment. You're just like, I want this to work. I want this to go. I want this to build. I want this to whatever. But I told my husband recently, I'm like, I look back and I'm like, if any one of these things, or any one of these offers, or any one of these systems or tools or whatever, it would have, whereas right now, I really feel like my role is to disrupt the coaching industry, in the sense of
Hmm.
like, women do not need to build a business this way. Like, we do not
Yes.
need to do it in the way we've kind of been taught. And
Yes.
like it's like, it's a very body based, intuitive sort of way of like, how can we build so differently?
Yes.
And I would never have gotten to this place if
For
any one
sure.
of those things, like if I had had really great success in one of those masculine structure boxes, like
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here, you know?
Mm. I love that. And I can just so relate. And when you're in it, it's frustrating, but also the
Yes.
act of surrender and recognizing, realizing like your soul, the universe, God, whoever you relate to, they know more than your human mind knows right now. It's like they can see the
Hmm.
whole path and things aren't working out because they're just directing you where you're supposed to be. And just like you, as you were saying that, I'm like, yeah, I'm like, imagine if those other, like, I can't even imagine if I was like an angel card reader, like that
Yeah.
took off. Like, I can't even imagine. Like, that's not my purpose. That's not my dharma. I
Yes.
know that. But there were skills, and I'm sure you can relate to this too. Like, there
Hmm.
were skills we learned from all those different
Totally.
variations that led us to where we are today. So they did serve a purpose, but they
Totally.
served a purpose in getting us to our purpose today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And like you said, it's like the surrendering in that, of
Yes.
like that. So, um, kind of like a little segue, but not really. I know you and I both are in that space of like the body
Yes.
and the nervous system. And I
Yes.
know we're like, yeah, we get this. Like you speak, it's like, yep, I could have
We
said,
don't
I
have to
would,
speak.
we don't have to. Like, we just get it. I'm like, yep, yep, I agree. And there's only a few people that I really feel like that with, because what I've learned in the space too is there's a lot of like talk about building a feminine business. And that feminine word gets thrown around a lot, but it's really not truly feminine. And I will even admit that I probably have used the like building a feminine business way before I actually feel like I fully embodied what building a feminine business looks like
For
and what
sure.
that really is. Like, because I was so in that masculine paradigm that it's
Yeah.
hard sometimes to see it. And so, even that same coach that I shared about before was like 0 to 100 in a year.
Uh,
She really emphasized this like feminine business. And yet a lot of it was like, it's feminine because she's a woman and
yes.
she's, raising kids at the same time as running this business. And that was kind of the definition of feminine at that point. But as I've grown to realize, like, wow, there are so many like feminine principles, and so much of it is about coming back to the body and about being
Mm,
aware of the body and that connection with the body. So I would love to hear your story and your journey on that, like where and how that really evolved and like what you see in the space of being like, this is a body-based feminine business type of space.
yes. Oh
Yeah.
gosh, I'm so happy we're talking about this, and I can relate to so much of what you shared. I feel like if we were to like rewind it back, I think many of us, and I can only speak for myself, but I was very much in my feminine growing up. And also there was a lot of messaging of it's not safe to be that,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
to be taken seriously, you have to be in this masculine energy. And so I ended up getting my degree in PR and marketing, living in Manhattan, like very much in like that girl boss energy, and then had a spiritual awakening. And it was like I had these two versions of myself, of like girl boss stilettos, like I'm gonna go for it and make it happen, and then also this like spiritual version of me that was, it was an awakening, but it was also like reawakening like who I
Yeah.
actually was. And so it took me some time to not just be in this or that. It was like, how do I actually have these come together in a really harmonious way? Because the masculine is beautiful
Yes.
when it is in its balanced version. It is we need it. We need that
Yes.
divine
Yes.
masculine, and we need the divine feminine. It's not one or the other. It's the interplay of them both happening. And so
Totally.
a large part of my beginning of the business, when I was doing even the angel card readings, I was doing all of that stuff, it was still rooted in masculine business principles, and force and scarcity, and it's all I knew, right? And it's like all
Mhm.
I think we also like knew as a collective was just like, this is how you make money. You burn out, you force it, you coach people through their money stories, right? It's like there was all this like stuff like,
Mhm.
this is what you do. And it was the second I started to shift, and I don't even know if I consciously realized it was shifting, but the second I started to work on the body, I started to bring in more feminine principles into my business. But as much as I knew that there was these feminine principles like you, there were still parts of me that were operating the masculine. Like I knew the
Mhm.
feminine part, but the masculine component was still kind of doing it. It was still running the
Yeah.
show. So it's like I was doing the meditations, I was doing the energy clearings, and I was also stressing the fuck out about my numbers and sale, right? It's like these two things were happening. And I was like, they
Yeah.
were competing together. And I think for me, the feminine sounds really sexy, and it is, right? It's like
Yeah.
femininity. Oh my gosh, like we create the world, we create humans, like we are sexy beings. But also, the feminine energy is highly emotional and feeling, and there's a lot of unsexy parts to get to the sexy part. And I feel like there was a part of me that, yes, like, whew, I want to be magnetic, I want to attract in all of these like abundance and clients for sure. And also I wasn't allowing myself to hit my knees to the floor and fucking
Yeah.
just like blah, right? And I think we've probably
Yeah.
seen those reels. Maybe it's just in my algorithm, but it's like you think you want this feminine thing, but this is actually the feminine. It's like the woman like screaming and crying and doing like going through the unraveling of the feminine. And I think I had to really allow myself to hit that process of surrender, quiet, and allow whatever to come through and up and out
Yep.
to come through up and out. And it was this like sacred, you said sacred disruption. And for me, it was like a sacred destruction where I had to kind of allow it all to fall. And I kicked and screamed the whole time. So it wasn't like I was like, I'm ready to just distract. Like it was not,
This is
I
a
fought
beautiful,
it.
graceful fall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I gracefully went into it. No, no, no. And this was around like from 2020 to 2022, kind of in this energy. And in that, I realized, oh my gosh, there's this whole other depth to feminine business. There's this whole other layer to it. And so I had to go into the womb. I had to go into the dark space. I had to go into the void to come out and shine.
Yeah.
And that completely changed the way that I do business, I see business. And I had to also heal my relationship to the masculine and I
Mm-hmm.
still have to work on this every day where I have to be hyper aware of when that wounded masculine kicks into play where I'm trying to like force because it's still there, right? It's like we don't
Yeah.
like get rid of these things. I can repattern it and rewire it, but it's still part of me. We can't
Mm-hmm.
kill energy, we just elevate it. And so sometimes I just have to catch it when I can go into this energy of like force and stress and I can catch the burnout. And the feminine pieces are way stronger. And we were talking about this before we hit
Mm-hmm.
record, and we were like,
Mm-hmm.
damn, we should have recorded that. But
Yeah.
the way I teach business now is through a cyclical state versus linear, because as women, we're cyclical beings. And also,
Mm-hmm.
like, success is not linear. There's ups and downs and sideways and backwards. And sometimes you go forward and then you go down. Like, it's a whole thing. And that has completely changed the way I've built my business, how I teach business. My energy is in like the best place it's ever been because I'm actually listening to my body and being
Mm-hmm.
in it and processing, and also teaching women how to do this. It's like a homecoming because it feels so
Yeah.
real and true because they're building businesses from the body, from themselves versus the mind. And I think that's been the biggest
Yeah,
shift.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, totally. And I like you and I were saying beforehand, I mean, I feel like that journey has been me in the last year or two
Yeah.
of like fully going into it, right? And I
Yes.
remember probably midsummer last year, I was like foxing my sister and I was like, I feel like I'm in the dark ages and I feel like I'm not supposed to actually try to get out of it, right? Like I think our
Yes.
society has kind of normalized that too of, feel your pain, but then don't be the victim and come
Yeah.
back out on the other
Yeah.
side. That type
Yeah.
of energy of like, don't stay in the hard spots.
Yes.
And I remember telling her, I'm like, I think I'm supposed to stay in the hard spot right now.
Yes.
Like, I think I'm
Yes.
just supposed to be in this. I mean, it was a good long season last year that I felt
Yeah.
this like inner turmoil, like in the depths, like what you just said, like I'm going into the inward, like surrendering. That was my
Yeah.
word of last year. And it's fascinating that I had such a high in like early spring and then it like crashed. And I was like,
Uh,
okay, I'm like supposed to surrender here. And just like
yeah.
you, it's like, it's not fun in the process. My business revenue tanked last
Yeah.
year. I felt like so many things tanked like in my world. I got diagnosed with melanoma, like just all
Yeah.
of the things that were hard. And I remember my book, I had written my book and like the plan was for it to release in the fall. And
Mm,
I was like, I don't even want to release my book. Like,
mm,
I don't even, like, there was no ounce of me that had any, ugh, like to
yeah.
make it happen. Right. And I did one exercise with James, and that was like the only reason he had me do this like timeline jumping, like quantum leap sort of
Mm,
experience thing.
amazing.
And that was the only reason that that book actually ever made it out into the world last year was because of that experience. And even then it was like, I'm only scratching the surface enough to like get this book out there.
For sure. Yeah.
And I think I don't know, that was another thing too of like just that element of we have to let ourselves sit in those painful moments and like in
Yes.
those depths and like in the emotions. And like you talked about like the cycle and the things like I don't think it's coincidental that our menstrual cycle has that same rhythm, right? We
Yeah.
have that very emotional go into the depths, like go into why am I feeling so triggered? Why am I feeling so overwhelmed? Why am I
Mm,
feeling these deep emotions? And yet society has really taught us not to lean into that. They're like, just you have to keep pushing through. You have to keep showing up. You have to keep doing
yeah.
this. And so it's like, it is this very dichotomy. Like I see a lot of women that come to me and they're like, I feel like my body's failing me. Those 2
Mm,
weeks of the month, I feel like I just can't keep going. I can't push through
for
because they
sure.
want to ride that high masculine
Yeah.
energy of that estrogen that's like, let's go, let's get this thing
Yes.
out there, let's
Yes.
do this, like, let's
Yeah.
pump the stuff out. And so when those other like elements of pulling in and going deep come in, it's like there's this resistance to it of like, I don't want to do that. I want to keep riding high. But it's, I think,
Yes.
only because we've really normalized that
For
is
sure.
productive. That's good. That's what we're supposed to be doing, and really underestimated the power of those other elements.
Yes. Oh gosh, I so agree. Yeah, it's that's the part that's been like glamorized is the
Mm-hmm.
I call it the fire. I'm like the fire, like the push out there. It's also addicting too, the dopamine because
Yeah.
you're like getting the excitement. And even just coming off of this last launch, I caught it in myself where I'm like, I want to keep going, 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 going. And then I'm like, wait, no, if you
Yeah.
do this, you're gonna burn out, right? Because the fire eventually
Yes.
goes boop. And I think that's what a lot of people we don't discuss because we're so focused on the force, the do it,
Mm.
gotta keep going.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, how deep we allow ourselves to go is how high we're then going to rise. So as we
Yeah.
expand and we have that big launch or whatever it is, we now also have to go through a contraction. Not that the contraction is bad, but we have to go back in and heal and nourish and rebuild our body and our nervous system because that takes a lot to
Mm.
be out there and holding it, holding that level of visibility and creating the content and the curriculum. Like
Yes.
that's has its own like life force to it. We've got to
Yeah.
go back in. We have to go back in and nourish ourselves, our community, because our community will literally get pitch fatigue too and burn out. They will burn out just as much as we will. And know and trust that in that contraction, we're going to expand again. And as we expand, we're going to contract. It's just the cycle that we just need to normalize and embrace. And so now I get excited when I go into the contraction because I'm like, ooh, something good's going to come out of it. Like if I
Mm-hmm.
allow myself to surrender, I'm going to come out of it faster, actually. If I willingly allow myself to go into this, I will come out of it faster. So that's my carrot at the end of the stick because
Mm-hmm.
maybe you've realized this too. The more I fight the surrender and the contraction, it's like I get an extra year added onto it. It's like the universe is like, oh, she's not going in. Let me add some more time to it because you don't learn your
Yeah.
lesson. So we actually come out of it faster when we allow ourselves to just drop in and be. And I think that's
Yeah.
important to speak about because business isn't and life isn't all the way
Yeah.
up. There's a lot that happens, but each time we hit our knees, we go into the contraction. It's to like push us out like a cannon for that next
Mm-hmm.
expansion, and we go even higher if we allow ourselves
Mm-hmm.
to fully drop in.
Yeah, I love that. So, what came to mind when you were talking about that was I don't remember if it was an actual coach that said it, but there's like a lot of push, I think, in the industry that for women and especially moms that are, juggling the evergreen and having this like evergreen offer is like the best way to go.
Yes.
And I love me some evergreen. I love things that are just like set and on autopilot. And also, what I've learned, and like I really have leaned into like the launch element is how cyclical it is. If you're
Yes.
like prepare, like get
Yeah.
everything together, big visibility, retreat back in and
For sure.
rest, then redo it again, like how
Yeah.
that launch system can also be very cyclical.
For sure.
And how I think sometimes we like glamorize that the evergreen, having it be passive.
Yeah.
And I remember just talking with a client recently, I was like, we don't really understand, we don't really talk about the fact that like passive revenue isn't always passive. Like you're working in the back end on the marketing, you're
Yes.
working on tweaking the colors of the buttons to make it convert better,
Yes.
you're
Yes.
managing all the numbers. There's this element of like sometimes I go back and forth of like I really love the evergreen idea of like just things doing on their own, but there's some piece of me that I've noticed when I operate more in that evergreen model, I am more prone to burnout and getting
Mhm.
frustrated with
Yeah.
like things not working. Like either A, it's not going fast or
Yeah.
it's not tweaking or it's not working versus the launch method. It's like this all in and then you have this rest. So they're two totally different
For
models. And I think
sure.
there's beauty in both of them and
For
having some
sure.
elements. But it's just interesting that we're having this conversation around cycles and like what I've noticed. And I think you could still bring those cycle elements into the evergreen, but it requires a lot more intentionality with it of
Yeah.
being very aware of like, okay, this is my season to really push hard on this evergreen offer. And then I'm going to take a step back from it and let it do its thing versus what I spent I think that was part of it too last year. It was like I'm going to spend this entire year working on this evergreen thing, and I
Yes.
kept working on it, and it was just like this stagnant, not stagnant, like the same old,
Yeah, yeah,
all year long, that kind of more linear type of model.
yeah.
And it was like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm so tired of like, how do I get the ads to convert better? And how do I get this thing to go better? And how do I like the energy was just not there.
Yes.
So would be curious to like get your thoughts and see where that's been, like what you've noticed in that realm too.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so happy we're having this conversation about this too, because I see it a lot where again, I think there's this glamorization of evergreen where it's like make money when you sleep, but there's a whole truth that's missing to that where there's no such thing I feel as a true passive evergreen
No.
for most, unless you are like a Kardashian, unless you're someone that has like, this like monumental following where it's like you say it once and it sells out.
And keep
There's going
selling.
and keep selling. Yes.
Yeah.
You there's a lot of energy that goes into evergreen that I feel is not discussed and there isn't truth
Yeah.
to it. I have made multiple seven figures in my business. I'm only just now starting evergreen. And I share that because I have, like you were sharing too, there is a cyclicalness to launching that I love. I love having
Yeah.
that energy, that high, and then going back in. And also for me, evergreen takes time, most of the time, to make it financially stable. Whereas when you have these
Mm-hmm.
live launches, you have these like cash injections, you have these surges of income, you have the payment plans. For me, what I've seen that creates way more stability than an evergreen that I spent so much damn time on. I'm tweaking the ads, I'm trying to figure out the conversions, and I make $1,000 on it, maybe. Like, it
Yeah.
to me, I'm like, all right, I'm going to set some time aside. I'm going to figure out the cyclical nature of this launch. And I'm going to go make six figures, multiple six figures. And I'm going to do that a couple of times a year. To me, that feels way less energetically intense, draining than I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
sit here and tinker and look
Yep.
at the stats and the ads and maybe make a couple of $1,000s. I think when evergreen is great, when you don't need the financial income to be there right away. I think it's great when you have a community of people that want more of you. So when you're a little bit maybe more
Mm-hmm.
established and you can just funnel people into an evergreen, or people are clicking your link tree and they purchase it. And I also think it's great when you're in it for the long game, where you're like, yeah, I'm going to just build this out. This is my thing that's going to create longevity for me, but I'm also going to focus on this other stuff over here that will
Mm-hmm.
bring me more of the impact and the cash. That's how I see business. It doesn't mean that it's right
Mm-hmm.
or wrong. I've seen people
Mm-hmm.
do evergreen and thrive. For me, I like the cyclical nature of the live
Mm-hmm.
launches. I love connecting with people. I love having the live course element.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, looking at ad conversions and like you said, like choosing the right color for the buttons, like that doesn't give me energy. Some people it
Yeah.
does. Some people love that. For me, I'm like, that's an energy drain. I'm going to go where my energy actually fuels me. And I think that's also
Yeah.
part of being in your feminine energy, is knowing like what fuels me and what drains me and being aware of that
Mm-hmm.
and choosing accordingly.
Yeah. What I'm just kind of curious. What do you know? What I'm sure you do. What human design type and stuff you are?
Yeah, I am a projector. I'm a self
Okay.
projected projector 6'2" profile.
Okay. I would not have picked that for you.
Most people don't.
Yeah. It's interesting. I feel like actually most of the projectors I know, I'm like, oh, I would not have picked you as a projector. It's interesting.
And that
Yeah.
has had its own like deconditioning, discovering that, because the
Yeah.
energy system of a projector is so different than a generator
Mm-hmm.
or a manifesting generator. And so, like we were discussing, most business building is very masculine, but it's also very generatory, because it's like, do it, keep
Mm-hmm.
going, keep going. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I don't have all that energy to keep going. What am I going to
Yeah.
do? So that's like a whole other conversation we can have about like the
Totally.
human design and how it impacts your business model too.
Totally. Yeah. And I think for me, actually, I had a friend of mine did like a human design blueprint for me a couple of years ago. And I remember when she did it for me, it was like she was starting her business and kind of testing it out. So she's like, can I try it on you? And I remember being like, yes, I love this. This like sounds amazing. Like it validated so much for me. And I went, 100-degree turn. I was like, it was probably a week before a launch. So a week before the launch, I decided I'm going to put out a different offer. I'm going to like do this whole thing, and it tanked. And I was like,
Mm.
wah, wah. That was a
Yeah.
bad move. I shouldn't have done that. And then in my head, kind of had this like second guessing of like, okay, maybe that wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. It wasn't how I was supposed to be doing. But now it's like 2 years later, it's like my body and my nervous system have caught up to that vision that she put out there for me at that point in time. It was like, like you just even said earlier, of like, I was not prepared and ready for what she had put out. And she and I've talked about it since now. And now I'm like, how she could help her clients kind of evolve into that vision
Sure.
if they're not quite ready for it. And it's fun to kind of see like it has validated so much for me of what I felt like in my core, but I don't know that I was prepared for or ready for,
Yes.
or other messages. And I know you and I talked about that at the beginning too, of like how we build a business by tuning inward and
Yeah.
listening to the body first rather than necessarily the coaches and the mentors. Because I think what I've learned in the last couple of years is that the way I'm meant to build a business is not how most of my mentors and coaches have
Same.
been teaching.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard sometimes when we're like feeling our intuition and we're feeling like we need to build a business this way. And then we get the training or the coaching or the mentoring that swings us back over here. And we're like, oh, wait, maybe no, this is the proven method. Like, this is how I'm
Yeah.
supposed to do it. And
Yeah.
then we go about for a little while trying to implement that. And then, like, I feel like for me, it's like been this slow, like, okay, come back to yourself.
Yes.
And then there'll be like another big training, another big coaching call or whatever it would be. And it would like swing me back of like, no, you're doing it wrong. We got to go back over
Sure.
here. And so it's this like swinging back and forth between what somebody else says
Yeah.
versus what I feel like I know. And
Yeah.
it's taken time to really learn to like trust in that, like just trust what you already know.
Yeah.
There's always going to be mentors and always, I'm like, I just invested in a VIP day that I'm like so excited about. Right. But like,
Sure.
there's always going to be mentors and coaches that we can seek that are going to help us, but never at the expense of like trusting what's inside
Mm.
first.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a journey I have been on. I think
Yeah.
it sounds like you have too.
For sure, for sure. And I would say it's also impacted the way that I support my clients because I used to, in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, they would come and ask questions and I would give them answers because I was like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I've done this. This can help you.
Yeah.
And in the last, I would say like 3 to 4 years, like what's really shifted is like, yes, there's certain questions when it's like, what tech would you recommend? Right. Like there is like a very linear, like I would recommend this one over this one. But the way my coaching with my clients has shifted is
Mm-hmm.
asking them the open-ended questions because I know they have the answer rather than me giving the
Mm-hmm.
answer. And my role is to not necessarily give them the answer or give them the answer right away. It's to ask them the questions to get them quiet enough to discover the answer that's already been in their hearts.
Yeah.
And that has been profound in terms of our clients' shifts and also their own empowerment. Because if I give them the answer, if I'm like, no, you should do your business this way, or no, you should say it this way, that's me. That's now
Yeah.
it's my frequency, my
Yeah.
energy convoluting their dharma, their purpose, their message, their frequency. And so when I can see the shift on them, Renee, where it's like
Mm-hmm.
when they come to it on their own and they're like, oh, I'm supposed to do cycle syncing or like, whatever it is, when
Yeah.
they come to it, it's an entire energy shift. And now they're embodied, now they're empowered. And I could have told them cycle syncing maybe at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
but again, that would have been me and like it would have taken their power away. And so even just
Yeah.
this whole energy that I've gone through myself, like we were discussing, it's now impacted my clients and it's been really powerful to see that ripple too.
Totally. It's funny you mentioned that because just this last week, I had a client that was messaging and she was asking some questions. And I was listening to the Vox message like
Mhm.
while I was working out.
Yeah.
And so I'm like listening to her message. And then I was like getting ready to go to the baseball game. And so I was like listening and responding in between like just random things on a Saturday morning. And was doing exactly that. I'm like, I would not do it that way. I would not
Mm.
like that if like, and I kept saying like, if it were me, like I kept saying
Yeah.
like, I don't want to give you advice, but if it were me. And then the next day I was like, that was a bad coach of me. Like I was not grounded. I
Mhm.
was coaching, but from a place of walking to the baseball field and
Right.
walking to like getting ready and all these things. Like I was not centered in my like, how can I help her show up in her fullest and embodiment? It was just like spouting off the top of my head. And so, and I did. I was like, I was a bad coach of me. I recognize that. So let's reverse what we
Yeah.
talked about yesterday. Let's
Yeah.
help you find what's right for you, right?
Yeah.
And I think it is one of those things, like when we start to, I think even just recognizing that in coaches too, of where coaches giving advice and teaching just systems. Like we had this conversation with a friend the other day. She's like, a coach that's going to teach you the system that they're using is not really necessarily maybe a coach. They're a
Yeah.
teacher
They're
that's
a
teaching you.
consultant. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they're going to tell you how to build out this one specific funnel, but that one specific funnel isn't maybe what you need or whatever. And so it's like learning how to find that coach that's going to bring out something in you that maybe they've never done, they've never been able to do, that maybe you go beyond what they're able to do, right? And rather than the coach being the person that has the like expert funnel. And we are going to need those things too. Like,
For
right? There's a,
sure.
like you said, a technical learning
Yeah.
of skills and things. But I
Yeah.
think there is a difference there when we look for that coach that's going to bring out something in us versus just tell us what to do.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And just like
Mm-hmm.
what I would love to add to that is I think something in our industry that is really important to me to like define and stand in because we have our own somatic coaching certification. And what we see
Mm-hmm.
a lot of our students is sometimes they fall into that energy of like consultant or teacher. And I'm like, no, coaching's actually it's not that. Coaching is coming from that energy of my clients have the answer and I'm going to ask the I'm going to be in that energy of almost like curiosity and ask
Mm-hmm.
them the questions so they can come to their own answer. I'm going to ask them the key questions that are going to allow them to come to their truth. And I feel in our industry, there's a lot of people calling themselves coaches when they're not. It's their
Mm.
teachers, or maybe they
Yeah.
are, they're just teaching from their experience, which is great. But as a true coach, like you and I can help any type of person, any type of industry, because we're not saying this is what I did and this is the thing that you have to
Mm-hmm.
follow. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's a teacher, that's a consultant, or that's an expert
Yeah.
versus a coach. A coach can help any person across any industry because they know that you actually have the answer the whole time. And I think that's a big thing that
Mm-hmm.
I like to talk about and really clarify is that coaching is an entirely it's a true skill set. Whereas when
Mm-hmm.
you're just doing that Q&A with someone, yeah, it's just your experience and what you've gone through, and you're like the expert in that thing. It's a totally different energy than true coaching.
I love that. I love that differentiator because I do think you're right. There's a lot of people just calling themselves coaches
Yes.
just as like a coach, but that knowledge of where you like you could go into any field and help somebody just because it's about the questions and helping facilitate them out of that. Like I
Yeah.
love that perspective. That's
Mm,
really beautiful. Yeah.
thanks.
Is there anything else you feel like we've kind of you want to make sure we leave people with or touch on? Like we've covered a lot of different spots.
Yeah, we did good today. We got a
Yeah.
nice juicy
Fun.
combo. You know what I always just kind of like to say is when you listen to interviews like this, they're activators. And when you're
Mhm.
listening to this interview, you might start thinking differently, or maybe
Mhm.
like an idea is popping up for you. And so I just want to validate that those ideas are coming to you for a reason, or you're starting to think differently for a reason, or if you're feeling sensation in your body, like that's all truth that you're
Yeah.
experiencing. And I would just like lovingly encourage anyone that has an idea from this podcast of this episode, like I would lovingly challenge you to take action on it because there's a reason, like you're getting activated right now. There's a reason why it's coming through you. Don't just like put it in your notes or your journal and be like, I'll come back to it. Like
Yeah.
make it happen after this, like follow that thread, and trust that even when it doesn't make sense, because that's often how our intuition and even our feminine energy works is we don't know the bigger
Mhm.
picture, but
Mhm.
there's that nudge, there's that calling to do something, and if we follow that, normally that's what leads us to our greatest healing, expansion, joy, love,
Mhm.
etc.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like learning to let go of like other people's perceptions of that on that
Yes.
journey. Yeah.
Totally, totally. Yeah. In the beginning,
Yeah.
I didn't tell anyone close to me what I was doing because it felt like I needed to be all of my energy, you know what I mean? Versus like
Mhm.
anyone else's thoughts. And I think that was like the best thing I ever did. So that's what I would like give as advice is if you have something, don't share it yet. It's normal to like want to belt it and tell everyone, but until you're fully like grounded and you're in your power about it, it might be best to just keep it or like hire Renee or be in a group program where it's like you can have these experiences with people that get it, that will fuel the vision versus take away from it.
Totally. So good.
Hmm.
Brianna, where can people find you
Oh,
to
I
follow you?
love, love, love hanging out on Instagram. It's really me and not a team member or a VA. So if you say hello, it's going to be me that sees it. And I love connecting with y'all. I am Brianna Rose. And then my website is lightleaderco.com to check out all the things, all the somatic goodness over there.
So good. Yeah, it's fascinating that you say that because like Instagram is that one spot. I'm like, I cannot pass this off. Like I like being there. I mean, my
Yeah,
assistant helps organize messages on the back end. Like, so
sure.
sometimes I'm like, that wasn't me that responded to that one, but like really
Yeah,
rarely. But most of the time I'm like, I love being over there. I love,
same.
yeah. So
Yeah.
cool.
Mm.
Well, thank you so much for being
Thank
on.
you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.